Hey everyone, welcome back. Before today's story begins, I want you to imagine something for a second. You're sitting at your ex's wedding. The music is playing. Everyone is smiling. And you're holding a secret that could destroy the entire ceremony. Yeah, today's story gets messy. So while the Minecraft parkour rolls in the background, I want you to do one thing. Tell me in the comments. Would you stop the wedding or stay silent? Because the person in today's confession had to make that exact choice. And trust me, what they decided changed everything. Alright, get comfortable. Put on your headphones. Because today's Reddit confession is titled, I attended my ex's wedding, with a secret that could stop it. Let's begin. I, 29, was sitting in the third row of a church that smelled like lilies and expensive lies, watching the woman who broke my heart adjust her veil while the man at the altar beamed like he'd won the lottery. The priest asked if anyone had any objections, and for a split second, the silence was so heavy I could hear my own pulse thumping in my ears. I didn't stand up. I didn't scream. I just reached into my jacket pocket and felt the cold, hard edges of a USB drive that contained the digital wreckage of their entire relationship. 3 months ago, she left me. No warning, no long talks, just a "we've grown apart" text and a block number. 2 weeks later, she was engaged to him, 34, and a high-level executive at the firm where she worked. Everyone called it a whirlwind romance. I called it suspicious. Being a software engineer has its perks, and one of them is knowing how to find things people think they've deleted. I wasn't looking for revenge initially. I was looking for closure. What I found was a shared cloud folder titled Our Future that had been active for 2 years. While I was working double shifts to pay for her master's degree, she was working late, with him in hotel rooms across the tri-state area. But the betrayal wasn't just the physical act. The folder contained spreadsheets, meticulous cold-blooded logs of how they were going to funnel company funds into a private account to start their new life. Once she dumped me, and they went public. "I do," she said, her voice echoing through the vaulted ceiling. The reception was held at a manor that cost more than my childhood home. I walked in, grabbed a glass of champagne, and waited. I saw her mother, 56, gliding through the room, draped in pearls. She saw me, and her face twisted. "Why are you here?" she hissed, cornering me near the buffet. "You weren't invited. This is a high society event, not a pity party for a jilted ex." "I just wanted to give them a wedding gift," I said, holding up the USB. "We don't want anything from you. You were a stepping stone. My daughter deserved a man with status, not a technician. If you don't leave, I'll have security escort you out for trespassing." The entitlement was like a physical weight. She truly believed her daughter had leveled up, and that I was just some bug to be squashed. She didn't realize I was the one holding the magnifying glass. I didn't leave. Instead, I waited for the memory slideshow. You know the one. The cheesy photos of the couple growing up, their first dates, the how we met story. I knew the AV guy. I'd helped him fix a corrupted file earlier in the night, under the guise of being a helpful guest. It was incredibly easy to swap the file. The lights dimmed. The room went quiet. The projector flickered to life. It started with the usual photos. Then, the music cut out. A document appeared on the screen. It was a bank statement showing a $50,000 transfer from the groom's corporate account to my ex's personal savings, dated 6 months before they supposedly met. Then came the emails. "He's still suspicious." My ex had written to the groom a year ago, referring to me. But I told him the late nights are just for the promotion. Once the degree is paid for and the account hits 200K, I'm out. The groom's reply, "Good. My wife's divorce lawyer is digging, so keep that money in the offshore link I sent you. We'll be married before she can touch a dime of it." The room didn't just go silent. It turned into a vacuum. I looked at the head table. My ex was white as a ghost, her hand over her mouth. The groom stood up, knocking his chair over, screaming for someone to turn it off. But I'd looped the file. The next slide was a photo of the happy couple on a beach in Cabo. During a week, she told me she was at a Women in Tech conference. The date stamp was clear as day. The groom's boss, who was sitting at the VIP table, stood up. He wasn't looking at the screen. He was looking at the groom with a look of pure, professional execution. Is that the missing contingency fund, Mike? The boss asked, his voice low but carrying through the silent room. The chaos that followed was beautiful. My ex tried to run to me, her dress trailing through spilled wine. "How could you do this?" she wailed, her eyes streaming mascara. "You're ruining my life. This was our chance to be happy. You're just bitter because I didn't choose you." "I didn't ruin your life," I said, setting my glass down. "I just stopped being the one who funded your lies. By the way, the police and your husband's soon-to-be ex-wife already have the full digital trail. They're probably waiting in the parking lot." Her mother tried to slap me. I caught her wrist. "You should probably save that energy for the legal fees," I told her. Embezzlement and fraud carry a pretty heavy sentence in this state. I walked out of the manor. As the first police cruiser pulled up the long driveway, I didn't look back. I had a 2-hour drive ahead of me, and for the first time in years, the passenger seat felt exactly the way it should. Empty. I'm currently watching the news reports. The groom was arrested for corporate embezzlement, and my ex is being named as a co-conspirator. Her mother keeps calling me, begging me to recant my statement, offering me money to say I hacked the emails and forged them. I recorded that call too. If you like stories where the stepping stone finally trips the person walking over them, subscribe for more. I promise my updates are more reliable than my ex-wife's vows. Would you like me to tell you what happened when the groom's actual wife called me to thank me? I, 29, was staring at the caller ID on my phone 3 days after the wedding collapse. It was a number I didn't recognize, but the area code was local. When I answered, the voice on the other end wasn't screaming or crying. It was calm, measured, and sounded like she'd just finished a very satisfying meal. It was the groom's ex-wife, though legally they were still very much married when he said "I do" to my ex. "I just wanted to call and say thank you," she said. The look on his face when those slides started. "I've been waiting 10 years to see him that small." She explained that she had known he was hiding assets for the divorce, but he was a pro at moving money through shells. By projecting those offshore account links and the time-stamped emails on a 20-foot screen in front of his entire professional network. I hadn't just embarrassed him. I'd handed her the smoking gun. Her legal team needed to dismantle him in the high-stakes divorce battle they were already fighting. "My daughter and I are going to be very well taken care of now," she told me. "And your ex?" "The DEA is looking into the gift money she accepted. Since she knew it was company funds, she's looking at a conspiracy charge." I hung up and looked at the pile of mail on my counter. There was a frantic, handwritten letter from my ex's mother. It wasn't an apology. It was a demand. "You have destroyed a young woman's future," the letter read. "She's pregnant and stressed because of your stunt. We are prepared to sue you for defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress unless you sign an affidavit stating you fabricated the digital evidence out of spite. Do the right thing for once in your life." The entitlement was honestly impressive. Even at the bottom of the pit they dug for themselves, they were still trying to boss me around. They thought they could bully me into committing perjury to save their skin. I didn't reply to the letter. Instead, I took it straight to the detective handling the embezzlement case. In my state, trying to coerce a witness or victim into falsifying evidence is a separate felony. "They really just keep handing us the rope, don't they?" the detective asked, filing the letter into a folder already bursting with my ex's digital footprints. A week later, I was summoned to a deposition. My ex was there, sitting across the table. She wasn't the polished, high-society, bright-eyed scene at the church. Her hair was greasy, her eyes were sunken, and she was wearing a cheap tracksuit. Her mother sat behind her, still glaring at me like I was the one who had cheated and stolen. "Why won't you just help her?" the mother burst out, interrupting the lawyers. "You loved her. Doesn't that mean anything? You're sending the mother of a child to prison." "She wasn't the mother of anyone when she was funneling my tuition money into a beach house fund with another man," I said. My ex finally looked up. "I only did it because I was scared," she whispered. "He told me if I didn't help him move the money, he'd leave me. I was trapped." "You weren't trapped," I countered. "You had a cloud folder titled Our Future. You had spreadsheets. You had a plan to dump me the second the balance hit your target. You weren't a victim. You were the architect." The lawyer for the firm then dropped the final bombshell. They had finished their internal audit. It wasn't just the $200,000 they found. The groom and my ex had been skimming small amounts from vendor contracts for nearly 18 months. The total was closer to $450,000. Because it crossed state lines via the offshore account, the feds were now interested. My ex turned to her mother and started sobbing, raw, ugly sound. The mother finally went quiet, the reality of federal investigation finally sinking through her thick skull. As I walked out of the courthouse, I felt a strange sense of finality. I'd spent years being this stable one, the provider, the guy who stayed quiet so she could shine. I've been a ghost in my own life. I went home, deleted every photo I had of her, and finally changed the locks. Not because I was afraid she'd come back, but because I wanted to make sure that version of me stayed locked out too. The groom is currently awaiting trial on a $500,000 bond he can't pay because his assets are frozen. My ex is back living in her mother's guest room, facing 3 to 5 years if she doesn't take a plea deal. I'm moving to a new city next month. I got a job offer that pays double what I was making, mostly because I don't have to spend my mental energy wondering why my girlfriend is working late. If you want to hear how I handled it when her brother tried to show up at my gym to settle things, subscribe. My stories have more plot twists than her defense strategy. Would you like me to tell you about the gym confrontation? I, 29, and was just finishing my last set of deadlifts, trying to burn off the residual adrenaline from a courthouse when I saw him. Her brother, 26, M, was leaning against the water station, wearing a sleeveless hoodie and a look of pure, unearned aggression. He's one of those guys who thinks a gym membership is a substitute for a personality, and he'd been texting me for days about how I did his sister dirty. I ignored him. I went to the locker room to grab my bag, but he followed me in. The room was empty, the air thick with the smell of chlorine and ego. "You think you're real slick, don't you?" he said, stepping into my path. "Ruining a wedding, calling the cops. You destroyed my family's reputation. My mom is crying every night because of you. Your sister destroyed the reputation," I said, not looking up as I zipped my bag. I just provided the subtitles. "You're going to pay for the legal fees." He stepped closer, trying to use his size to intimidate me. "I don't care what the lawyers say. You're going to transfer that inheritance money to my mom, or I'm going to make sure you can't walk to your new job. You owe us for the pain you caused." The entitlement was clearly genetic. He actually believed he could extort me in a gym locker room because his sister got caught being a criminal. "Step aside," I said quietly. "Make me." He puffed out his chest. "I know you have the money. Just write the check and this all goes away. Otherwise, I'll tell the cops you've been harassing us. It's your word against mine, and everyone knows you're the bitter ex." I looked up at him and smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. Check the corner of the ceiling over the mirrors. He blinked, looking up. The gym had recently installed high-definition security cameras with audio recording after a string of locker thefts. "You just attempted third-degree extortion on camera," I said, slinging my bag over my shoulder. "And since you mentioned the inheritance, you've also just admitted to a conspiracy to commit theft. I'm starting to think none of you actually finished high school." He turned pale. He tried to swing at me, a slow telegraphed right hook that I didn't even have to dodge because he slipped on a wet patch of tile. He went down hard, his head narrowly missing a bench. I didn't hit him. I didn't need to. I just pulled out my phone and hit record as he scrambled to get up. "Go ahead," I said. "Say it again. Tell me how I owe your mom my inheritance." He didn't say another word. He scrambled out of the locker room so fast, he left his own gym bag behind. I walked to the front desk and handed the manager a copy of my standing restraining order against the family, then requested a copy of the footage. By the time I got to my car, I'd already sent the clip to my lawyer. 3 hours later, the brother was picked up by local PD for a parole violation. Turns out he had a prior for assault that he hadn't mentioned. My ex's mother called me, screaming that I was systematically destroying her children. No, I told her before hanging up for the last time. I'm just the mirror. If you don't like what you see, stop being ugly people. The brother is back in lockup. My ex is waiting for her sentencing. The mother had to sell her pearls to cover the retainer for the brother's new lawyer. I'm currently packing my last box for the move. My new apartment has a view of the city, a gym with better security, And most importantly, no room for people who think they're entitled to my life. I'm starting fresh. No secrets, no lies, and definitely no gym rat brothers. If you want to know how I'm spending that inheritance now that the family is out of the picture, subscribe. My life is finally back under my own management, and the dividends are looking great. Thanks for sticking around for the fallout. I think it's time I finally log off and live. And just like that, the fallout finally settled. Sometimes karma doesn't rush in with sirens and thunder. Sometimes it just waits quietly for the truth to do the work. If you made it this far, you already know, some secrets don't stay buried, and some people eventually trip over the very stones they tried to use. If this story had you hooked, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done in his place? Stayed silent or exposed everything? I read every comment. Until the next confession, stay sharp and trust your instincts.